Hey, right. Well, a very good evening to you all. I hope you're all fine. It's Wednesday. It's the 25th of January 2023, and it's that time of the week where I bring you the 10 to 14 day look ahead for Kent and Southeast England. It's not so much a forecast, it's more looking about the trends and the overall patterns, but I will put a bit of a forecast in. I'll be able to show you how I expect the weather to be playing out over the next few days as we move into the early part of February. Well, it's been quite a contrast over the UK in the last few days. We've had some really quite exceptionally mild temperatures across Scotland, but down here in England, and particularly the southeast of England, it's been much colder. In fact, parts of Scotland have had daytime maximums of 13 degrees, whereas down in London, there's literally been 2 or 3 degrees. And this is interesting. I'm going to show you something from the camera up at Glen Shee. Now, you'll see how the snowfall up there over the last few days has literally melted away. This was 3 days ago. This is 2 days ago. This was yesterday, and this is today. This is up at Glen Shee, and this is something like 650 meters above sea level. So it really just goes to show how mild it has become up there in the north of Scotland. Now, things are expected to start changing a little bit. There is a cold front on the way down across the country at the moment. In fact, if you look out of the window here in southeast England, the cold front responsible for that change is pushing through now. It's raining quite steadily. This cold front will be pushing out of the way overnight, and tomorrow we are in drier air, we're in clearer air. The visibility will be better, but it'd probably still be rather cloudy. So we'll take a look at the radar at the moment. This is the scene at the moment. As you can see, a really quite sort of marked feature showing on this radar. This is the cold front. Cold fronts are always quite often shown up with sharp demarcations, and they mark the boundary normally between the milder air and the colder air to the north. But in this case, because it's been so cold to the south, we're actually bringing in slightly less cold air from the north because it's all mixing up with that breeze that we'll come on to tomorrow. So we now look at the jet stream. This is the high level winds that steer all of our low pressures. This is the jet stream at the moment. It's 9 kilometres up in the air, and this area of blue indicates quite nicely where the high pressure systems are, where we're being protected from all those fronts that are currently running up across the north of the country. Now, there's going to be some subtle changes over the next few days, and I will show you for why. And this will change the weather pattern as we go into early February. And this is what I'll come on to a bit later on in the forecast when I start looking at temperatures, wind, rain, precipitation, etc., etc. So this is the scene at the moment. Now, tomorrow, a slight switch in the position of that high pressure has diverted the breezes down from the north. Now, you'd look at that and you think, oh, that looks pretty cold. But if you actually track the source of the air, it's from a long way south. It stayed over the relatively warm Atlantic. It's not really gone particularly far north for this part of the UK. And if you track it back down, it comes down across the UK. So it's never going to be a heat wave. It's never going to be exceptionally mild. It's never going to be exceptionally cold. So temperatures, it's fair to say, for the next few days will be around average. So we'll run that jet stream through. This is Thursday. This is Friday. So once again, this area of high pressure being shown here with the greens and the yellows and the blues are keeping most of the weather fronts at bay this weekend. It won't be until next week that this jet stream starts to move and change things. So this is Friday. Now we move into Saturday, and it appears that the jet stream is now starting to direct its influence back towards the UK, and by Sunday there's a strong jet now running across the north of Scotland. High pressure is starting now to edge further and further away, and we're starting to bring in weather fronts towards the northern parts of Britain, Scotland, as this high pressure slowly gets eroded from the north. By Monday, the jet stream is back over the UK. So this really kind of brings us back to the scenario where we were earlier in the month, where we had quite a lot of wind, breeze, rain at times, and showers interspersed with some brighter showery days. And then Tuesday, very much the same. Jet stream over the country. High pressure's trying to get back in towards the southwest, but it's always going to be sort of struggling by this stage. by Tuesday next week, and then by Wednesday, the jet stream will be firing back over us. We bring in the risk of more Atlantic weather systems, more fronts, more breezy spells, more rain, and more wind at times, but never particularly cold. But I'll come on to those temperatures towards the end. And even if we run the jet sequence through to Friday, the 3rd of February and Saturday, the 4th, there we are. We're looking predominantly unsettled. So that's the overview of the jet stream, the all important jet stream that drives our weather systems. By this time, this lovely area of high pressure protecting us will be well out the way. We'll go on to the WX charts now. We just run through the loop for the next few days. So at the moment, if you look on this map, you'll see our cold front that's producing the rain at the moment, or the clearance front, as I've been calling it for the last few days, will push out the way. And tomorrow we are in a drier sort of air mass. There'll be cloud coming in. There's the chances of showers for a time pushing off the North Sea, but to all intents and purposes, this then marks the spell of relatively dry weather, variable amounts of cloud, and very small amounts of rain, particularly as we go into Friday and towards Saturday. What starts to happen is as we move towards the latter half of the weekend, this area of high pressure that I've mentioned will start ebbing away. We do slowly start to bring in more in the way of cloud, more in the way of Atlantic weather systems, just starting to push across the UK. But I think even by Sunday, we're still relatively dry. As we move into the early part of the next week, so Monday the 30th, you'll see that the breeze is now starting to move into the west or the northwest. The breezes are picking up. High pressure is moving away to the west. Low pressure is starting to influence the country. And with time, we start to bring in more in the way of breeze and Atlantic weather systems. So this is Wednesday the 1st. And that's then the situation as we roll it out through the 2nd. And then the 3rd, and by Saturday the 4th, there's another Atlantic weather system bringing in wind, rain, and mild temperatures. We'll now just take a look at those temperatures for the next few days. So if we start with obviously tomorrow, so we're going to be seeing 8s and 9s, quite a bit higher than they have been of late. This is Friday's temperature, 7s and 8s. Saturday, we're looking at 5s and 6s. That's because that high pressure, just for a time, will start to be pushing back across, just cooling things down a little bit. But by Sunday, we're up to 7s and 8s. Moving to the early part of next week, the temperatures do start to increase by day. So we're looking at 9s and 10s. We've not seen 10s for a little while, have we? Not for a couple of weeks now. And then early part of next week, 8s and 9s, 9s and 10s on Wednesday the 1st. And then 2nd, we're looking at 8s and 9s, and pretty much 9s and 10s as we move into the Friday the 3rd of February. They're the maximum temperatures, so they'll be slowly climbing. We'll take a look at the overnight temperatures. So tonight, no temperature-related problems with all that cloud. Bit of frost towards the west of London as those skies clear. Tomorrow night, 3s and 4s. So this is what we wake up to on Friday morning. This is what we wake up to on Saturday morning. Chance of a frost again as that area of high pressure temporarily pushes over and settles things down. By Sunday morning, we're waking up to 2s and 3s. Still some patchy frost around. But as we move into the early part of next week, those temperatures do start to become milder as we bring in more cloud and breeze with occasional rain or showers from the Atlantic. There will still be the odd cold night behind any Atlantic weather systems, any cold fronts that push through, but they will be transitory and then always or often followed by a milder night the night after. So a bit of a fluctuation with nighttime temperatures next week. We're not out of the frost risks, but we're certainly not in proper wintry territory. Temperatures will be up and down overnight in a generally unsettled pattern. So there are your temperatures. I think we've covered them off quite nicely. Now we'll just have a quick look at the pressure patterns. So no surprises for guessing. It has been relatively dry lately. If we start at the left-hand side of the screen, pressure is high. It kind of remains that way through until about the 1st of February. Then quite a few of them ensembles start to show a dip. And this is where we're starting to bring in the more Atlantic weather systems and the unsettled weather. As a result of the area of high pressure, it's relatively dry. So again, we start at the left-hand side. There's our rainfall spike tonight. Let's bring in that cold front through. Then we're fair to say we're fairly dry up until around the 31st or the 1st of the month. So to the early part of next week, Monday, Tuesday, we're still relatively dry. But as we've already mentioned, from about the 3rd onwards, the wind, the rain, and the weather systems do start to come in from the Atlantic. We'll take a look at the temperature trends. So things are slowly increasing. We've been quite cool the last few days, but yeah, there is a general sort of trend there for temperatures to slowly increase with time. Quite interestingly, that thick green line tonight is showing us a very deep cold easterly. So it just shows we're never quite out of the woods in this time of year, even in a predominantly mild weather patterns. This is where my forecasts will hopefully pick up on trends as they move through. Looking at winds, so yeah, fairly light over the next few days. High pressure at the weekend keeps things relatively calm. But once again, as we move 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th February, those winds do start to ramp up as we start to bring in more of the weight of low pressure. We have a little bit of fun here with the snowfall charts. This is for folks doing very, very little on offer this side of, well, in the next sort of 2 weeks. I would have said just a few showing up there potentially around about the 8th or the 9th. But yeah, outliers at the moment and not to be taken too seriously. But we'll keep an eye on it. And then really just to close things off, this is a sort of situation that we'll probably be looking at in about 10 to 14 days' time, with bands of rain pushing across the UK at times, high pressure well to the south by then, relatively mild, and yeah, windy at times as well. So I hope you've all found this forecast useful. Just kind of just gives you a bit of an overview as to what we're likely to get. But yeah, really in summary, we're dry for the next few days. It turns more breezy, more unsettled as we move into the opening days of February. Temperatures slowly start to rise. Frosts at night still possible, but milder nights in between with those rainy spells as they come through. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the update, but in the meantime, all have a great night. Look after yourselves. Thanks for listening, and ciao for now.